So have you guys ever seen the movie Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship, and you see Boromir sitting down and he's looking at the ring and goes, one simply does not walk into Mordor. One simply does not walk into Death Valley and lives to tell the tale where they come out and basically mollywop a different opponent unless they're built to go to the playoffs. And I know there's going to be a lot of Aggies out there that would love to comment on me and say, how dare you join the bandwagon when it's too late? I'm going to do this, and I don't feel comfortable doing it, but you know what? At the same time, I do. Texas A&M walk into the college football playoff because I do not see a scenario where somehow, some way, you drop 3 games over your next 4 and miss out on the postseason conversation, because that was an ass whooping. 49-25 final score out in Death Valley as Texas A&M kind of silences any more critics about where they are as a program, especially after what we witnessed on Saturday night. So let's not waste any time. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. It's Cole Thompson. Make sure you like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel because we talk Texas A&M football. We talk college football daily. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are proudly brought to you by our friends over at FANDUEL. Go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started today with $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Sign it up right now, FANDUEL.com/SECU. My God, what a game. What a wow. I genuinely am still kind of flabbergasted on what we witnessed because I thought Texas A&M was going to win this football game. I thought Texas A&M was going to put on a performance that we could actually talk about where they kind of silenced the doubters. They definitely answered a lot of questions about where their team were. There is a difference about playing a game of football and then doing what you just did. Tommy Moffitt, stand on up and collect your flowers. My dude took out a lot of pent-up aggression, had this team not only physically, but mentally prepared. 2 mistakes is honestly the only thing that we could say about Marcel Reed and this offense for them not dropping 50 points in Death Valley. Like, it was a straight-up massacre in so many ways offensively for Texas A&M. And we're going to start with Texas A&M. We'll get over to Brian Kelly. What is the long-term future about what he's going to be in this team for the not-so-foreseeable future? I'll promise you that. But by all means, what a performance offensively. Marcel Reed deserves all the accolades. I get it. He had one horrendous, absolutely non-negotiable bad interception inside the red zone. I mean, you throw it right into the hands of A.J. Halsey. That should have never happened. I can forgive that when you end up finishing with over 300 total yards of offense, find the end zone on 4 different occasions, boot, scoot, and boogie like any single dancer on a town hall honky tonk on a Friday night for over 300 yards and find the end zone 4 times. I genuinely cannot say enough good things about Marcel Reed. He needs to be in the Heisman conversation. He needs to be in the running for SEC Offensive Player of the Year. He needs to be considered a favorite to why Texas A&M can actually compete for a national title. Because of when you need a big-time play on so many different drives, 10 was perfect. He wasn't perfect the entire night. Had 2 bad interceptions. We can talk about that. But on every other instance, he was able to give you something that showed this team was different. Texas A&M played a game to where there is so much you can look at and say, very, very hard to doubt who they are. They kind of laid it all out on the line. And once again, I've talked about this a million times on SEC Unfiltered. Texas A&M had been a walking red flag for years. It was that way in the Kevin Sumlin era. It was that way in the Jimbo Fisher era. And for some of us out there, especially for me who used to cover the team, I was always going to be cautiously optimistic. You turn the corner, you did some good things. Let me see what you're able to accomplish now with a new head coach in year 2. You got rid of the old smell in the house that was Kyle Field. Let's see what you look like as now this being your program. And slowly but surely, once again, you got to cross off the boxes. Oh, we can't win on the ground? No problem. We'll win with Mario Craver. We'll win with Casey Concepcion. Oh, we can't win with the passing attack? No problem. We'll go ahead and sack the quarterback 7 times. We'll go ahead and limit the run game. We'll win in a rock fight. Oh, we can't get a good defensive stop. No problem. We'll have Marcel Reed come on out and he'll deliver a 300-yard performance, and we'll put ourselves in a position to where we can be successful. And then there was the road game. And last week, It never felt like it was in jeopardy. Like I will continuously say, the Arkansas game was certainly one to where you sat back and you asked yourself, well, it's close, but I'm not really worried. Like it was a 3-point swing, but I'm not really worried. I think the Texas A&M's got this thing locked up. It's the Death Valley performance that we're going to have to talk about. What do we need to talk about? You had over 500 total yards of offense. You had a punt return for a touchdown. You won you lost the turnover battle, but you won the time of possession. You outgained LSU by nearly 200 yards. You outrushed them. You finished with more yards after contact. You had more first downs than them. Everything that we needed to see was there, and it's Death Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make something abundantly clear to you for those who are still wondering if Texas A&M is actually not a team that you need to be fearful of. Death Valley is one of the most toxic environments in college football, and we got to the fourth quarter, and it was half empty. You are a special team if you do something like that. If you're able to take away the Couillons and bring them back to their tailgates before the clock strikes 0, you are a special team. That was Texas A&M tonight. My God. I'm genuinely, I've done multiple reactions on this channel, and I will continuously do multiple reactions on this channel. I have never been more impressed with a performance by a team that has lost the turnover battle than I was tonight with Texas A&M. They were more penalized than LSU, which has been a problem for them all year. They had fewer explosive plays than LSU at time going into the fourth quarter, which has been a problem all year. They allowed LSU in the first half to be able to gain momentum with the big-time safety, and then we talk about with the block punt. We talk about the interception that was returned out of the end zone. All little things that definitely gave LSU momentum, and it didn't matter because the second half adjustments by the Texas A&M squad were so damn good, they mollywopped them and took away everybody. In the second half. That's where we were. That is what makes this team special. A&M played a 4-quarter battle, learned from their first half mistakes, came on out, and delivered a performance to remember. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I mean, let me phrase that. I don't actually hate to be a bearer of bad news because this is something that's actually really important. The Texas 8-4 joke's over, guys, because they're not losing to Samford. So they will at worst be 9-3, and they're not going to go 9-3. Bo Pabula is going to be out for the rest of the regular season. Matt Zollers, for as well as he looked today for Mizzou at times, is not going to be Bo Pabula. You face off against South Carolina. They may have cashed in all of their chips for the upset of the year against Alabama, and unfortunately, the Norris Sellers fumbled the ball to give Deontay Lawson a short field position, and then Jeremy Bernard punched on in. And Texas struggled on the road against Mississippi State. We're talking about a 12-0 team potentially in Kyle Field, in College Station, going to the SEC championship and facing off against Alabama, LSU, or Ole Miss. And those are the 4 teams you have to worry about. Maybe Vanderbilt too, actually. I'll throw Vanderbilt in just to be safe. I'm not ready to go ahead and put them entirely in that conversation just yet. I see them more as a college football playoff team. But my goodness, there's nothing to doubt about Texas A&M anymore. Marcel Reed was awesome tonight on so many different instances. Casey Concepcion was awesome tonight on so many different instances. You barely got the ball into the hands of Mario Craver, and it didn't matter because if you had other weapons step on up. Ashton Bethel-Roman with the one-handed grab of all one-handed grabs that we saw tonight. My God, I can't stop talking about this team. 5.6 yards per play on the ground. The ability to win to win without having a big turnover battle. All things that probably could have hurt Texas A&M, and it didn't. The Aggies are special, man. I'm going to be the first to say it. And I think the reason why you all know this is a big-time deal is because I'm the one that criticizes A&M the most. If anybody out here is willing to go ahead and not wait and see A&M actually live up to expectations, it's yours truly. And to get a win like this in that environment and take the life out of Death Valley, you're in for a special year. The last time Texas A&M marched into Death Valley and got a win was 1994. If not for the Southwest Conference sanctions, they may have been playing for a national title. They went 10-0-1 that year. They won this game, and they won it outright, and they handled business, and they decided to lay waste the second half, and there was something about the way this game went that kind of gave me confidence. I'll tell you what, I believe the Texas A&M was going to win this football game the second that I saw the Tommy Moffitt video. So Tommy Moffitt, for those of you that don't know, and a lot of you do, but just for those of you who don't know, was the former strength and conditioning coach at at LSU for over 2 decades. He won a national title with Nick Saban. He won a national title with Les Miles. He won a national title with Ed Orgeron. And in comes Brian Kelly, and Brian Kelly says, I want to change. I want to bring in my own staff. Best of luck to you in your future endeavors after 22 years. He goes to Kyle Field. He goes to College Station. And somehow, some way, Mike Elko was able to get in contact with him to bring him away from Louisiana and into College Station. And since then, he had been festering probably for this moment to arrive. He had been waiting for the opportunity to go ahead and show up Brian Kelly and say, hey, you messed up. You messed up big time. And if you watch the video and the slight little innuendos and the jabs that were thrown towards his former program, a team that he had helped lead 3 national titles to, had brought back prominence down to the Bayou, all of that, you knew you were in for a day to where Texas A&M, so long as they were playing on their P's and Q's, was not going to drop this one. And they didn't. 400 total yards of offense, the ability to have a great game plan, second half adjustments, running the football efficiently, having your leading rusher be your quarterback, and even if you were to take away the big 41-yard scamper with his legs on the ground, he still would have been your leading rusher. It's a performance that is the stamp of approval to where everybody's got to look at you and say, we believe that you're a playoff team. We believe that things are different down at Kyle Field. We believe that College Station is rocking for a reason. What a game from Texas A&M. I cannot stop saying nice things about them. And again, for many of you who have been with us since the very beginning of SEC Unfiltered, for many of you who followed me on over from Locked On Aggies, who remember me from my times on the beat, I was critical about Texas A&M, and it was because I knew that this was the expectation. What we witnessed tonight was what people had always envisioned, and you hadn't gotten there yet. And now you've arrived, and now it's very hard to kind of quit to say that this team is going to be slowing down anytime soon. Still have a couple more games ahead. You still have to beat up on Mizzou. You still have to go face off against South Carolina. You still have to go play in Austin. But it is very hard to say at this point, if you were to take a Sharpie and say Texas A&M, somewhere in your 12-team college football playoff, you would be wrong because I just don't see it. I simply don't. Now on to LSU side. LSU has got to have a very hard conversation at hand when it comes to the status of Brian Kelly. This was not a well-prepared team. This was a team that constantly found ways to shoot itself in the foot. They were able to respond very early on in this game to at least make this a 3-quarter battle. The fact that you were able to get Trey Green to the end zone, you had the safety, you had the Harlan Berry touchdown, you go up by 18-14 at halftime, Damian Ramos gets field goal kick. You feel confident. A lot of things that went good in the first half, and then it was just like, hey, someone's asleep behind the wheel. We know that we're all passed out in the back seat. He's asleep in the front. We're all going down together. That's what it felt like because there was no second half adjustments ever at any point for LSU. They constantly shot themselves in the foot with bad play after bad play. They had multiple drives that just were heinous in the second half. I mean, you had a punt, you had a fumble, punt, turnover on downs. It took you 12 plays to get in the end zone and going toward your backup quarterback to finally get any points in the second half. You were up at halftime. You scored 7 points to close things out in the final 30 minutes. Your offense before the final drive, let me just make this clear for everyone who doesn't understand. Your offense finished with under 80 yards in the second half. Your inability to run the football was atrocious. You finished with 60 total yards on the ground. And by the way, 28 of them came on one run by Caden Durham. So A&M actually held you to under 2 yards per play. You have no pass rush. You have no ability to protect your quarterback. I genuinely think that Garrett Nussmeier is doing everything that he possibly can to save his season. And you know what? He still has a problem. He's struggling. He is not finding much success in the passing attack. But the other thing is he has no time to throw. He doesn't. It's constantly under duress, having to move. And I'll tell you what, Cassius Howell in the front seven of Texas A&M, they were able to get on after him. But it doesn't matter because you're LSU. You're supposed to be a team that has five-star talent, developing, going toward the NFL draft. You lose Will Campbell, his backup's supposed to come on in and be a great replacement. And I understand the left tackle is probably a sensitive subject because you're already down your starter. But regardless, LSU did not have an offensive identity and a game plan to be able to withstand Texas A&M. A Texas A&M team that I might also remind everybody gave up 40-plus points a week ago against Arkansas. An Arkansas team that found a way to lose on Saturday at home to Auburn, who both of you would have kicked the crap out of. That's how bad it was. And you had no answers offensively. It shows you where the difference is in these two programs. It shows you why one can compete for a national title and the other one is probably going 8-4. And it's not Texas A&M, which again, we're so used to saying that as a joke. Going into the season, if you were to ask 100 people who know college football and understand the SEC, and you said, hey, which team goes 8-4? They would say Texas A&M, because you want to know why? It's tradition. It's so accustomed. A&M has been an 8-4 team most years that they've been in the SEC. And on the flip side, you would say Texas A&M is not going to be able to hold its own against LSU, because LSU went out and spent money in the transfer portal. They put themselves in a position to where defensively they were going to be able to rock against anybody, and offensively they return a starting quarterback who has over 30 games of experience underneath his belt. They have a solid offensive personnel, and hopefully this will be the season where they can learn to run the football. And none of that showed up. None of that was able to be on display tonight. None of that's been on display for a while. And so now Brewster's got to have a serious conversation. Brian Kelly's buyout is over $50 million. Is it worth it to move off of him to start fresh? Because you're going to lose a lot of players to the portal. That's number one. You're going to have to pay over $100 million to replace the entire staff. And the next guy you bring in is going to cost you a pretty penny, at least $12 million in annual salary, which means you're going to be spending over $100 million to bring in a brand new staff that's going to be able to bring in the right resources, allocate the right funds, and put a team in a position to where they can strike. So regardless, you're spending over $100 million to fire a staff, fire the people that are currently running the regime, and bring in another staff for another $100 million. That's $200 million in the state of Louisiana going towards Tiger football. When you thought you fixed the problem by hiring Brian Kelly away from South Bend, Indiana. I have been one of the biggest Brian Kelly supporters for the last 3 years. I said that he didn't have a defense when you had Jaden Daniels. I said that he wasn't able to go ahead and build a repertoire when it came to the overall personnel structure. I said that if he wanted to move off of Mike Denbrock, I can understand, because of Brian Kelly has been able to win multiple games and put this team in a position to where they can be successful. Year one, with a quarterback that nobody wanted to buy stock into, he beat Nick Saban in overtime. And I think a lot of my thought process thought that eventually he'd be able to get the right players in, he'd be able to get the right personnel in, and that would turn the tide, and it hasn't worked. It's always a yeah, but when it comes to a Brian Kelly-led team. Yeah, we have an offense that's good enough to put up 50 points a game, but we have a defense that's going to give up 55 points a game. Yeah, we have an offense that has a Heisman caliber quarterback, but we got a defense that's being led by the blind. Yeah, we have a defense that's able to be fixed because we got a high-end defense coordinator. Yeah, but we can't run the football to save our bleeping life. That's Brian Kelly. And eventually, because of you had to make a switch, it was not fair to Garrett Nussmeier. You decided to finally turn to Michael Van Buren. And surprisingly, Van Buren found a spark for this team. You have a lot of things you got to work on and going into the bye week. You go on the road to take on Alabama. After that, you have to go face off against Arkansas. After that, you still have a game against Western Kentucky and then Oklahoma to close out your year. Playoffs are done. You're not going to the playoff this year. You're not going to be a team that ends up meeting its goals for what you said in the preseason. And everyone bought into it. Everyone said that LSU was a team that was going to be able to find a spark. LSU was a team that had all of its ducks in a row. They put themselves in a position to where they can be effective. It ain't happening. And it ain't happening this year, and it may not happen as long as Brian Kelly's in charge. It simply is the case. There's so many things that could go wrong. So many things that when you needed that moment, you didn't have it. And the crazy part is, you, in my opinion, played such a good first half to make this thing interesting that you figured at some point, Death Valley, Saturday night, weather playing in your favor, ravenous atmosphere, crowd behind you, the ability to trust that Texas A&M a week ago playing on the road was not going to be able to put up the same type of numbers, it would have been in your favor. It would have benefited you. You were outgained by over 100 yards. You were able to finally pass the football efficiently enough over Texas A&M, but at the same time, you rushed for 60, so you made your offense once again one-dimensional. You lost in the penalty battle. You lost in the turnover battle. You won in the turnover battle, but you lost the time possession. You had so many self-inflicted wounds that it ended up costing you. This is not a coach team. It's not a well-positioned team. And that's where we are when it comes to the status of LSU underneath Brian Kelly. You're 5-3. You're not bowl eligible going into the month of November. I can't tell you the last time that I remember LSU not being bowl eligible going into the month of November. And you spent money on your defense to fix this problem. And you're nowhere near close to it. You aren't. That's where we have the issues. It's going to be a fun, interesting offseason. It's going to be a fun hiring cycle. There are so many things that right now we do not know where we are when it comes to the long-time status of this coaching search. And what I mean by that is there are going to be names that right now are being told, hey, we may or may not be firing a head coach. Hey, be on the lookout for potentially this job opening on up. Texas got rumored today that they were going to lose their head coach. Everyone knows this. That became the number one job. With how many jobs are available on the market, do we see somebody tell LSU, I will pay the buyout personally if it means we can get X coach here? I've already said this on Twitter. How am I saying it here? I could see a scenario where where Lane Kiffin turns down in Florida because he wants to stay at Ole Miss. He gets a phone call from Scott Woodward or whoever is the athletic director. He is not turning down LSU. LSU, in my opinion, is one of 6 jobs in America that if you get that phone call and they say, we want you to become the next head coach, you don't say no. You just don't. Knowing what is at stake for the long-term status and what's going to be an expanded playoff and what's going to be a now 9 conference game schedule starting in 2026, for LSU, you got to look at the giant picture and ask yourself, are we in a position to where we know we're going to be in the postseason conversation? The college football playoff has been going on since 2014. LSU has gone one time. That's not the standard down in Baton Rouge. 8-4 gets you fired. 7-5, 100% puts you well beyond the hot seat. You are burning alive. That's where you are. They got to ask yourself, what are going to be some things that we work on this offseason? Because if we do not fix it, we are definitely in a position to where we are absolutely, I cannot continuously tell you how bad of a look it's going to be for LSU. Definitely feels that way. Let's get your comments down out of here. Gig'em, keep the Aggies rolling. Gig'em, Cole, thank you, Tyler. Whoop, I'm an Ole Miss Rebel. Guy, I appreciate you for watching earlier. Good game, good win, by the way. Thumbs up. Gig'em. Cole, aren't you glad you came back to the good side? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. When I told you guys weeks ago that I was done down in Texas A&M, it wasn't a bit. Like, so many people kind of went in my DMs. I always laugh at this, and they're like, hey, how dare you come to our side? And I told them, no, I'm not joking. I really am actually on your side. I think that Texas A&M has turned the corner and put themselves in a good position. They said, no, you're doing this because of you are trying to make sure we lose. I didn't. Like, I actually believed in Texas A&M. There was very little to doubt at that point. There's very little to doubt anymore. Amen to Tommy Moffitt. Absolutely, Bo. What a performance from him. Gig'em. Whoop. Cole, how much does – I'm guessing you're talking about Marcel Reed. Does it hurt potentially? I mean, I still think that Diego Pavia belongs in New York City at this point. And largely, I believe he belongs to because of what the Heisman's supposed to be, Tyler. In my opinion, when we talk about the Heisman Trophy, and this is just me as a non-voter that wishes he had a say, because if he would make sure that every single year the Heisman was going to the right person, just like when I release my AP poll rankings, even though I'm not an AP voter, but my top 10 rankings every single week, I give you the correct top 10 rankings. It's about persona, and it's about the most important player. Marcel Reed is right now A&M's most important player. They're not 8-0 without him at quarterback. That's got to mean something. So, does it hurt him in the long run? Absolutely. You can throw that in because of Mendoza doesn't have a big interception ratio. Ty Simpson doesn't have a big turnover ratio, and he has a big touchdown ratio. Those are things that maybe give them the slight edge, but it doesn't matter. I'm putting them in the conversation. I was there in 94, didn't realize it'd been so long. Yeah, again, special year that season, special year this season. Empty the stadium, Scott, is not even the beginning of what you can say about Death Valley. Like, to have that, that's the thing, guys, to have that type of performance where you basically blanket all of Death Valley and take the seats out. No fans in the stands. They're watching a one-sided performance. Special type of performance. Absolutely no questions asked. Looking for coaches at Florida, Penn State, Arkansas, maybe UCLA, and LSU. They are looking for a coach at UCLA. Is there $200 million to spend? There's somebody out there that will pay it. I can promise you this. There's conversations going on behind closed doors asking, can we afford to be able to get rid of a coaching staff and bring in another coaching staff that's important? How can anyone in their right mind hire Brian Kelly, who was a basic loser at Notre Dame? I think largely because he was able to take his team to the college football playoff on multiple occasions, went to a national title appearance in 2012, was the all-time winningest coach for a program, and had sustainability of turning the team into a pipeline for the NFL. It's probably a big start. But it's also based on what you brought in when it came to coaching staff, members, personnel groups. Losing Mike Demrock was a bigger deal than I actually gave credit for. I didn't actually look too much into that at the time, and I was probably wrong on that. In fact, I would say I was very wrong on that. That was just my opinion. Barry, Texas A&M still overrated. Beat a garbage team like LSU is nothing new. Maybe it isn't, but at the same time, they haven't won there since 1994. They haven't started off in a 8-0 start since 1994. They constantly shoot themselves in the foot in these type of performances on the road. They had a bad performance last week overall when it came to Arkansas, and yet they were up by 10 with like 13 seconds left. So again, like it's a big time deal on that. Brian Kelly had to say that this is when he left Notre Dame and wanted to be an environment with the resources came, playing in a national championship game since then, most likely fired. It's very hard not to argue that. Again, I don't know if Brian Kelly is fired this year. I think the writing is on the wall that he is not the guy to bring you to a national championship program or a national championship status. It's not a good deal. 5-3 for this LSU squad was not supposed to happen. It should never be the standard. More specifically, it probably is going to be the reason why a lot of coaches are fired this offseason. A lot of personnel changes are moved. And even still, that might lead to the departure of Brian Kelly. Before you can fire Brian Kelly, there's a couple things that we need to talk about. Number one, do you have the money to be able to fire him, fire his staff, and fire all of the people around? And then do you have the money to bring in a quality coach that's going to be an upgrade over them? Because money's the first and most important thing. The second thing is, do you believe that he is good enough as a recruiter? He's good enough at working when it comes to the player personnel, developing talent, to where if you say you need to fire XXX offensively and bring in these people, we'll give you the money that we're going to use in the buyout for you to make sure that you hire the right personnel members. That may be the other question you have, because if it's a lot easier to say we will pay X amount of dollars for you to fix the problem than to send you away. You never want to pay millions and millions and millions to send someone out of the conversation. That way they're no longer a part of the program. Like that's where we are. Like that's where you are when it comes to LSU. Like Texas A&M at the same time. They probably didn't want to fire Jimbo Fisher until they had to, until it was abundantly clear they had reached a ceiling. It was never going to get better. 8-4 was going to be the new norm, and we got to hit reset. But then at the same time, you also got to look at Texas A&M and ask yourself the question of, hey, did we make the right move of getting rid of a coach and paying all this money to bring in Mike Elko? I can tell you what, yes, you should. Because Mike Elko also made 3 incredible hires that put his team in a position to where they could be successful. The first one was Tommy Moffitt, who has changed the strength and conditioning staff entirely in ways that Jimbo Fisher never could. Number 2 was hiring Colin Klein, because Colin Klein is a massive reason why we are seeing Marcel Reed fit beautifully into this offense. And the third and the most important one to me is Derek Miller. Derek Miller is the general manager for Texas A&M, and Derek Miller was so influential on making sure that they brought in Cassius Howell. He was influential on bringing in Nick Scorton. He brought in Casey Concepcion this offseason. He brought in Mario Craver this offseason. He made sure to fix up on the offensive line. He helped flip a couple of kids at the last second in the last year's recruiting cycle. So again, the thing is that making moves like that was so important that you got the right coach, because if he was able to identify personnel members that would put you in a position of success. Because I do not think for 1 second you see Texas A&M here in this spot at 8-0 going into a bye week, knowing that they feel content with what they have in an offensive coordinator, in a strength and conditioning coach, and in a GM. And that's because of who you hired as head coach. That is the difference between what you needed when it comes to the personnel changes. So do I think that maybe they would go ahead and bring in those type of moves for Brian Kelly? Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see if they give him the opportunity to do so. Questions, get them on in before we get on out of here. We'll go for like 5 more minutes. Who gets fired first, Kelly or Dabo? I don't think Dabo's getting fired. If Dabo wants to leave, I could see that happening this offseason. If there was a job that opened on up and they said, we want to pay Dabo an inordinate amount of money to be able to lead our program into the right direction, I could see him saying to Clemson, give me all of the attention or I'm leaving for the school. Brian Kelly, I cannot say the same thing about. Brian Kelly, I could see a scenario where LSU goes 7-5 and they say, we're done. It's very easy to believe that. Because if there's a certain standard set at LSU that Brian Kelly is nowhere near come close to meeting. Offensively, they've taken massive step backs. Defensively, they have improved in certain areas, but they're still in a very, very risque spot. So, again, that's kind of where we are, at least in my standpoint of things. Texas A&M puts you on display tonight saying, we have so many faults with our team right now that we have got to fix the problem internally, and that might be moving off of a coach. Second-year coaches taking on over the SEC, DeBoer and Elko. Yeah, I mean, DeBoer had a good day today, but I'll tell you what, I'll let you know right now that I'm releasing my rankings probably in the next 3 hours or so. I may wait until the morning because it's 11 o'clock my time. Texas A&M is going to be ahead of Alabama this week. I had Alabama at number 3 last week, and I had Texas A&M at number 4. That's switching. And I get it. And there'll be a lot of people out there, especially in Big Ten country, who say, well, they had some struggles against a team from South Carolina that was underwhelming. If you've never been to Willie B and you've never understood what that environment is, I can tell you what, you do not understand what the SEC is all about. That is one of the most toxic, ravenous environments in college football. But at the same time, this is not a good South Carolina team. For you to play around too close for comfort, to me, honestly, is why I knock you down when you go into Death Valley, which in my opinion is the toughest place to play in college football, and you dismantle. You win by 20-plus points. That shouldn't happen for any road team. That specifically shouldn't happen for any team that you feel like you've owned over the last decade plus, whenever they've come to town. Dan Climbs, Indiana would win the SEC easy. I don't know if it would be easy, but I would pick them to win the SEC. I do not see Indiana losing a game this year until we get to Indianapolis. And then they may even beat up on Ohio State at this point. Like, if you have a scenario where Indiana is number 1 in your rankings, I'm not doubting you. Why? I mean, did you see how well they played today? They had their softball punch out there. Like, they were laying toss-ups, and they still were dismantling UCLA. Like, it was one of the easiest bets to fall for today, in my opinion. 25.5 points. And I fell for it. In fact, one of our best bets that we had yesterday was UCLA plus 25.5. We lost that before halftime. Like, the bet was, I didn't even have to check in the rest of the game. I knew that even if we saw some bit of life come in, that would be it. That'd be it. When Mizzou beats SC, they suck. When Alabama beats SC, they're good. I didn't say Mizzou sucks after beating SC. I think they're fine. I think Mizzou's a fine team because they were handling business today. I even said that earlier. Like, I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting Mizzou. Mizzou didn't have a good Mizzou had multiple faults that kind of came back to bite them in the ass when it came to Vanderbilt today. But the Mizzou win, I thought, was very promising, especially when you played against South Carolina. And in my opinion, Alabama looked worse than Mizzou when they faced off against them. They looked way worse when they faced off against South Carolina than Mizzou did. Mizzou at least had a pulse when it came to running the football. They were efficient when it came to third down conversions. They were really, really good when it came to the passing attack downfield. You had the explosive play. Like, Alabama had none of that. Alabama got lucky that they caused a fumble by Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan, and that Jeremy Bernard was able to score. Like, Alabama played a D- performance, in my opinion, today. And somehow, some way, they were able to respond. Like, I could see them dropping down to number 5 if you want to. Like, that's where I am. Death Valley myth began with Saban before him started on it. Yeah, Barry, the reason why we're talking about LSU in such a prominent light now is because of what Saban made it. Like, we don't spend enough time talking about the impact that Saban had on this program and why things have changed so much in Death Valley because of what we know about Nick Saban. Like, you got to remember that LSU was a dumpster fire it was a laughingstock for most years before Saban got there. And then he changed the culture. He changed the standard. He put them in a position to where they were viewed as a legit force in the SEC. And every coach that followed him had to hit a certain standard. And that's why they are where they are today. A couple more minutes before we get on out of here. Any more questions, comments we can get to? Before we do get on out of here, though, let me tell you about my friends over at FANDUEL. FANDUEL.com/SECU right now is giving you $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So that bet could be on anything, whether it is the SEC championship game. Those odds are currently out. Going into next week's odds, those odds are already out. Heisman Trophy odds. I may throw a little bit of money down on Marcel Reed to win the whole damn thing because he's playing out of his mind right now. Coach is getting fired. Whatever you want, parlays, same-day props, whatever it is, visit us at FANDUEL.com/SECU. Sign up and get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Okay, last one. It is tough to win on LSU on Saturday night. It's very tough, Rui. Very, very tough. That honestly, that's why I'm beyond impressed with this Texas A&M win. Like, this to me has been the most impressive Texas A&M win I've seen probably since they joined the SEC. Maybe if you want to, you can talk about beating Alabama with Nick Saban and Brian Denny year one. Johnny Manziel basically going ham, laying waste that team. I could see that being the most impressive win. But besides that, this to me, knowing that you have Brian Kelly with his back against the wall, knowing it's a place that you haven't won since 1994, knowing that you lost the turnover battle, you had a worse day on when it came to the passing attack, you allowed still more explosive plays than you got, and you won by nearly 3 scores. Yeah, in my opinion, that is 100% far and away the most impressive win we have seen. Like, they made it look easy. As Dorothy Price likes to put out here in the comment section, they made it look easy. They made it look so easy in the second half. The adjustments that Mike Elko, Colin Klein, and Jay Bateman made were the reason why Texas A&M looked like a completely, totally different team. And that's why you can start believing in them. I have yet to say this yet. I'm going to say it now before we end the stream. Texas A&M at this point needs to belong in the national title conversation. And I understand that you need to still prove it against South Carolina and Texas and Mizzou. I understand that. You got to prove it in the playoff. But there's very little doubt at this point to ask yourself why Texas A&M is not going to be considered a playoff team, a playoff threat, and a national title contender. They have answered all those questions top to bottom. And it feels like even on days where they have a secondary punch, it's good enough to lead the charge. And that's what makes them a different team. All right, we're going to end the stream right here. Texas A&M, 49-25 win over LSU. They're built to go on a run to the college football playoff. And LSU, guys, you got to make some changes. And if you think the best change is to literally move off of Brian Kelly, I can't doubt you. I simply can't. There's too many reasons to believe that right now where this team is, how this team has performed, and where this team continuously shoots itself in the foot. You got to make a switch. And that switch may come by cutting off the head of the snake. As for Texas A&M, you're 8-0 for the first time since 1994, if I'm not mistaken, and you put yourself in a prime position to where college football playoff, you're not thinking about that anymore. You're thinking about the next major step. And by the way, you can get there far, far, far and away. Who do you think they get in a massive coaching carousel search this year? Rem, I don't know if they fire Brian Kelly. I don't. If they do, the only 2 names that I can tell you, let me phrase that, 3 names that I can tell you right now that I do not think would be available. Number 1 is Ryan Day at Ohio State. Number 2 is Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Number 3, it feels weird to say this, but I don't think it is. I would probably lean Dane Lanning. Those 3 are probably not going anywhere. And then if you want to throw Steve Sarkisian in as well, he's more so destined, I think, for the NFL than he would be for LSU. Those are the 4 names that I think right here you're not going after. None of them are going to happen. Everyone else should be made available. And I, by far and a half, would go after Lane Kiffin. That'd be the one that I'd pick right here. When do the real playoff rankings come out? That is November 4th. So next, I believe it's, next Tuesday. Two Tuesdays from now. So not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. And at that point, we will be doing a live stream afterwards, talking about the entire game. So like the video, hit the ring notification. Make sure that you follow us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson at SEC Unfiltered. We'll be breaking down that. We'll be breaking down Sunday Funday tomorrow. Eli Drinkwitz at LSU. Guys, I think at this point, if Eli Drinkwitz is going to go anywhere, it feels like Florida feels like a pretty good option. Maybe Penn State. Do you want him at LSU? I mean, there's a lot of Florida people that do not want him there. Heupel, maybe? Again, a lot of names that would be made available. All ones that could make a lot of sense. Like the video, hit the ring notification, follow us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson at SEC Unfiltered. We'll be back tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Make sure you go ahead and hit the live stream. Make sure you hit the ring notification. Sunday Funday, recapping all 7 games in the SEC. I only lost 1 game today. Like, I feel really good tonight. I went 4-1 during best bets this week. So there'll be a lot to discuss, a lot of things that we can buy into, and look ahead to week 10 of the college football season, where there is going to be yet another separation Saturday. Until next time, folks, I'm Cole Thompson. Have a good night. Get some sleep. We'll see you all tomorrow night. Break down week 9 of the SEC season. Texas A&M. What a performance. LSU. What a letdown. Peace.